Thank you all for coming today. I'm a little nervous because I don't usually talk in front of crowds, so thank you for your patience. Today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about saving seeds from plants, from vegetables, fruits, and flowers, because I don't know, everybody does different types of gardening at the house. And I wanted to start by questioning, why do we save seeds in the first place when we can just as easily go out and buy them from almost anywhere, grocery stores, big box stores, and online. For me, it's the cost. It's not a huge expense to go. Can everybody hear me? Can you guys hear me? It's not a huge expense to buy a pack of seeds, but to fill this garden that has 23 beds and 6 rows, and then the entire fence line with purchased seeds would get expensive really quickly. And I found out this year, at the beginning of the season, that they were impossible to find because of the pandemic. Everybody wanted to start their own garden because of fear and, a little bit of self-sufficiency and sustainability. Everywhere was out of seeds, unless you just really wanted a big garden of radishes and parsley.
Right.
Those were everywhere, but the food part wasn't. So availability is one, cost is another, and for me, there are lots and lots of things that I really, really like, that I like them. Why not continue to grow that one, that kind? Maybe it's got something special about it that I just really like. So ensuring that I have that same thing year after year, I will save the seeds from that fruit, that vegetable, or that flower year after year. The first question is, how do you know when a plant of any kind, whether it's a fruit, a vegetable, or a flower, how do you know when the seed is ready to be saved? I mean, some people believe that when the flower looks pretty, maybe that would be the time. Or, Diane, you know better, huh? She's shaking.
The flower has to be dead.
The flower has to be almost dead. We like to call it mature. Because I'm going to be almost dead one day, but I'm going to be fully mature, but I won't be dead. The flower has to be fully mature. I cut a few of these from the fence line before you all got here. This one looks about dead, but it has a very green stem.
Right.
This ain't fully mature. It ain't like Diane said, it's not quite dead yet. What you're looking for is something, do I get the nod of approval from you?
Right.
Fully dry, nice and dark, fully dry stems means that the flower itself is mature, and you should be able to very easily pull out all of the chaff and the seeds from the head. I don't know if you guys can see this, but we can pass it around. Well, that's how a lot of seeds, that's how annual plants, things that you only plant once a year and then they die, how they can come back year after year. These little these pieces right here, those are your seeds.
Those are the seeds.
Those are the seeds of the flower. You can pass them around if you want to. They do. I'll wait for her to finish. Sorry. And that is how you get new flowers everywhere.
I read recently that a seed could be dormant in the dirt for 40 years, and you go dig it up, and it'll come up. So it was a thing saying maybe we shouldn't plow our gardens because it dug up all these weed seeds.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do know this. You can ask 10 different gardeners the same question and you'll likely get about 12 different answers. No joke. Ask me the same question next week about seed saving, and I might have, because we're always evolving, we're always learning.
Right.
So that is true for flowers, and I have a bunch of flowers here, and I'm not going to do all of them, but sunflowers, it's the same thing. It's usually they're unlike the zinnias that'll stand straight up on their what looks like dead. Sunflowers like to droop over. So this is how I kind of cut this one off. It was the vine, the stem was hanging down. The heads get really low, and then you can pick out all of the, look, they just fall out. All of these are sunflowers that you could roast possibly and eat. Feed them to maybe a chicken or some birds, put them in your bird feeders, or plant them and they'll grow again next year. And another reason, I almost forgot why I like to save seeds. Now these are not your yellow sunflowers. These are Moulin Rouge. They are a crimson red on one side and a golden, a beautiful golden on the other side. So I'll pull some of these off if anybody wants them.
They're red, you said?
They have a red face and a yellow, the back side of the yellow, the petals are yellow. They're beautiful. They're really, really pretty.
I always thought sunflower seeds were larger than that. You know, like seeds you buy in the store to eat. They're a lot bigger.
Absolutely. But that does not mean that these aren't edible. That one's not, because I lost it. Because it's gone. Because I'm guessing that'll be edible for a squirrel. Okay, so that's the basics on flowers. There's always going to be an exception, always going to be an outlier, but the basic rule for all of them is that they have to be fully mature, and that's how you know when your flowers are fully mature, is the stems are nice and dry, and the material in the center comes off pretty easily. And my favorite reason, I forgot to mention this before, my favorite reason for saving seed, you can get out of a flower that size, I think out of the zinnias I got 35 seeds out of one head. There's enough to share, and I like to share. We always have a seed swap after these workshops, trying to get people that maybe haven't tried a butternut squash or want to grow a yellow pepper. We want to give them seeds so that they can try in a pot or in their own house. And when you have a lot that didn't cost you anything, you're a lot more generous. So for me, it's a lot of fun. Okay, then the next thing is, when you get into the vegetables, is it's still the same thing. You still want them to be fully mature, and they're different. I'm trying to group these vegetables together. Tomatoes and peppers have some things in common. They both should be firm, fairly firm, and they should both be their full color. Neither of these are green. You can eat peppers when they're green, and we can eat tomatoes when they're green, at least us Southerners like our fried green tomatoes. But for seed saving, they need to be their full ripe color. A mature pepper will be yellow, red, orange, purple, or white. It is not green. So if you try to save a seed from a green pepper or a green tomato, it won't be viable. If you want to try it as an experiment over the winter in a windowsill, that would be fun. But my experience with trying to grow things, frustrating, because I never knew that there was no such thing as a ripe green pepper. I always thought that, I just thought that when they're nice and big and the stuffing kind, of course it's ripe. But no, you leave it on the vine, it'll get its true color, and then you can take the seeds out. That's kind of where the similarities.
Is that true for like banana peppers too?
You know what? I don't know. I actually don't know. I've never left a banana pepper on the plant long enough to see if it changes color. But I'm growing jalapenos at my house this year. I've never seen a jalapeno turn red. But I haven't been in my backyard because I've been here. And one day I went and all my jalapenos were red.
Oh my God.
I didn't even know that was a thing. So you can eat them red, you can eat them green. I'm not sure how much it changes the flavor when they turn red. Have you ever eaten one red? We did. Matt and I did. We actually cut one up and put it in our cornbread.
Oh.
But I couldn't tell you what that tasted like compared to the green one, because I had a red and a green in it. That is an excellent question. I will Google that. Anyway, so that's about where the similarities end. I picked this one just a few minutes ago, right before y'all came. It does have a little bit of green in it. I can't help it. Normally I would have, something that's it's full color, but this is 99% there. And I feel confident that these would be viable, or I wouldn't have picked it, but I would have preferred that it was full yellow. Has anybody ever saved a seed from a pepper before? You have? Matt has. Matt's learning. Matt's gardening with me.
Yay, Matt.
If we were in the spring, you could actually just cut this and put it in dirt, and it would grow just like this.
Oh.
Yeah, you'd have way more peppers than you want, and that would be a disaster. And I know this because when rotten peppers fall, a lot of times they are ripe. Some of them are overripe, and then you know, because you have a bunch of plants growing that you never put.
Right.
You never put there. So all you want to do is you want to just cut them open. These are sweet peppers, but I still don't recommend you using your hands, because as much as we try, you're going to end up touching something that's not going to like your eyes. Or at least that's what I do. And I just kind of scrape them out onto a plate. I would get them all, but for demonstration purposes, I would just put them on a plate, and then with a marker or a Sharpie of some sort, it is a sweet yellow, sweet bell pepper yellow. Because even though that you think that you're gonna remember, you're not. And you will want to know the difference between a sweet yellow pepper and a spicy cayenne pepper when you go to plant your garden, or when you're sharing seeds with your friends. You know, you definitely don't want to have them mismarked. And if there's anything else, any other characteristics about the food, now's the time to write it. Some people prefer paper towels, is your preference. I know from experience that as these continue to dry, they're gonna stick. They're a lot, for me, because I don't have any fingernails left anymore after being out here all this time, they're easier for me to get off the paper plate than they are to get the paper towel off the back. For a pepper seed this size, which is actually, can y'all see that? It's a pretty good sized pepper seed. It's really not that big of a deal, but when you see the size of the tomato seeds, it becomes a big deal.
How long do they need to dry out?
These need to dry at least a week, and then you want to test them. You can just take one and squeeze it with not tweezers, but pliers, or hit it with a hammer. If it's dry, it'll shatter, and if it's not, it'll just kind of squish. They need to be completely dry before you put them in something airtight. Otherwise, they will mold and they will infect all of them. So I will leave mine out for minimum a week, but usually I'll go on to 2 weeks, because I also forget what I'm doing sometimes. So here would be a good place to write the date, so that you check back and you write the date and you know. I'll be saving these in case the wind takes those away. The tomato, very similar in that, you know, the ripeness and the firmness and the full color. Did anybody know that if you didn't have tomato seeds in your tomato, you'd have no flavor? That's where the flavor comes from. At least that's what I've been told. And I tried that theory out one day. I took all the seeds out to save them, and I didn't think that the tomato had any flavor without the seeds. It's kind of like the meat when you're eating a steak, the flavor's in the fat. Anyway, so for this, kind of the same thing. You want to get them out on your plate. I do not recommend doing this on a paper towel, or unless you want to plant 17 tomatoes at one time.
Yeah.
They are so tiny. These are actually not a bad size, but the biggest difference between those pepper seeds, those are going to be good in a week to 2. These are going to take much longer to dry. There is a sack, yes, because it has all that little juice on it. There is a sack, some kind of gel sack, if y'all can, that surrounds some fruit and vegetables. And I'm not sure what the name of it is or the relevancy of the name, but I do know that sack protects the seed through the digestive tract so that it can survive. And as proof of that, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of tomato plants in those woods back there come the spring. Because for every tomato that was split or had a bug on it, we were pitching it over the fence. And I'm sure they got eaten by the squirrels. So it's going to be interesting to see how many tomato plants that we have next
may
year.
have to pick tomatoes down there.
Maybe that'll just be what the squirrels eat, and they'll leave these alone.
Yeah.
With
doubt
that.
it.
So there's a couple of different ways to deal with this. And this gelatin sac is also usually around cucumber seeds as well. There's a couple other plants, and I can't remember off the top of my head all of them, but it needs to not be there. This is really difficult to try to wash off or, by hand. So what I find works very well is I put them in a glass jar, I put the seeds in a glass jar, and I fill it about 3/4 of the way up with water. And I give it a swirl 2 to 3 times a day. That is fermentation. And after about 2 days, you can rinse it out into a colander, one of those mesh colanders. And if it's not completely off of the seeds, do it again for another day or 2, but no longer, or the seeds will start to rot. Usually the method of keeping them in water and out of direct sunlight, you'll get a clean seed that then you can put on a paper plate, and then you can allow it to dry for a couple of weeks.
Do we need to get rid of the gelatin sac before we plant tomatoes?
No, you don't.
No?
You can actually today. I had a volunteer come, and we pulled out dozens of tomatoes that had sprouted. The sac kind of helps to preserve it. And so if you're doing your planting in the same season, if you want to plant this tomato this year, take them out, go put them in the dirt. No drying is required at all. But if you want to save them for next season, yes, because between now and next season, this if it's not, you can simply air dry them, and it'll break down and it'll start to come off. But it needs to be removed, and it needs to be dried for long-term storage, or the seeds will rot.
Okay.
So do your best to get it off. If you can't and you just dry it, it'll eventually break down. You just want to maybe give it an extra week. So let them dry for maybe 3 weeks, and then test it. Sound good? Okay. So the next group that I wanted to talk to you about, I can't show you because maturity for these next set means that they're not edible. Full maturity in some plants means past the point of us wanting to eat them. They will be bitter. I'm sorry?
Or tough? Too tough?
Some would be too tough, some are bitter, and some have no flavor at all. And cucumbers, yellow squash, zucchini, any summer squash, summer squash and zucchini and cucumbers, and they're in the same family. They're the same family of fruits and vegetables. They're in the cucurbit family. And in order to have a cucumber's seeds that are fully mature, that cucumber is going to be about this big and maybe about this wide, and it's going to be yellow. And you're not going to want to eat it. It's going to taste very bitter, very, very, very foul. Cheryl, you've had experience with extra large zucchini.
Right.
Trying to cook with them, there's nothing, they're not good. That's what you want if you want the seed. Hence, that's why I can't show them to you, because they don't exist right now. You can either, if you're growing them in your garden, you can either sacrifice one for the seed, or do like we do, just overlook one. It's not hard. They hide. They are so easy to miss when you're harvesting, when you're in your garden and you're pulling cucumbers, and the next day somebody says, "Well, gee, Jennifer, how did you miss that? It's this big." Because it was this big yesterday and I missed it, and then it doubled in size overnight. But about being tough, Jen, the loofah. Have you all seen the loofah? Diane, have you seen the loofah that we're growing here? We've got one giant one that's growing right there. Yes, ma'am. That is in the same family, and as a young plant, it's tasty. To me, it tastes like zucchini. Matt grilled ours, cut it up and put it on the grill. But if left long enough to full maturity, this is what you get. It's a loofah sponge, which you can't eat. And this, at all. No. And look, they're still coming out. Yeah. And when it's fully dry, that's when you get the seeds.
Is that one considered fully dry?
This one is. It is. It had these dark spots were I think maybe it was starting to rot. And I washed it, and the color hasn't changed since. But yeah, all of these are fully dry. You know, touch it.
What was the color of the skin? When you did
This
right?
one, thank you. This one turned a creamy yellow brown. I got most of the seeds out, and I have plenty if you want some.
So was there a feeling on the outside of this?
That green,
Did it just rot off?
it turned yellow, like think the 70s yellow and brown. That's what the color, turned. And then I was able to peel the skin off. What's I'm doing? Yeah, you've not seen these in the store?
I've seen them in the store, I've just never seen them grow.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah, we can do the dishes.
Yep, you can do the dishes with these. You can wash your body with these. And if kept clean, these are good for about a year. As opposed to what I'm using to wash my dishes. And I'm constantly having to replace. So those fruits and vegetables, you're probably only going to get the seed out of them if you're growing a garden, or if you know somebody that's growing a garden and can let them go on past the point of not being edible. Does anybody have any questions?
What about okra? Is it tough?
Too tough. The next group of vegetables that I wanted to talk to you about, that I want to share with you, are the potted fruits and vegetables. Anything that comes in a pod. And okra, that qualifies. So Cheryl has been letting this go to seed for, it's been on your, how long, from the time that you,
Well, since I planted them back in April. That's how
this is how yours is? So this okra and these green beans have the same similarities. They're both, the seeds are inside. I can hear them. Can y'all hear them?
Yeah.
Don't have a microphone. You have to leave this on the plant to turn into this before you pick them. It doesn't matter that they look too big and you don't want to eat them. Cutting a piece of okra off that has its color and is still green on the stem and then letting it dry is just a dry, immature seed. You're not likely to get a new okra plant from it. But have you ever tried?
No. It's always fall.
Okay. But if you leave them on the plant long enough and they look like this, you think this is a horrible science experiment gone bad. It's not. This is by design. Can't remember the name of it. It starts with a D. Diascence? Something. There's a natural weak spot on the spine of okra. It naturally will split open when the seeds are ready. And then they just come out. It is not hard. This one is already, look at that. Vanna,
Wow.
do you want to take it around and show people? No?
Wow.
Camera view?
They can spread by themselves without any help.
You don't even need
It
any
just
help.
dries out on the
No.
vine.
These are not going to self-seed. Like your flowers self-seed, when you leave, it's not likely. Let me back up. Let me not speak an untruth. It is not likely. Okra does not like the cold. These flowers don't like the cold either, and they're going to go dormant. They're going to die, but the seeds from these flowers can survive. Like Cheryl was saying, they can just survive. I don't know why. But if you allow your okra to grow until it goes to seed, you're probably not going to leave it there all winter long. You're going to pull it out. So the likelihood of it just dropping its seeds and then planting in the same spot next year is really minimal. Not only that, you shouldn't plant your if you have okra growing in a spot and it drops its seeds, you don't want okra growing in the same place 2 years in a row. You want to do crop rotation. So if you have it growing over here, next year you want it over there. Because the pests that like your plants wait in the dirt over the winter. Not all of them, but most of them. And you just want to rotate your crops out where you can. So this little guy, I couldn't even tell you. This one spine, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in one of these spines. And there's more.
We're getting a lot of plants out of one pot.
Not only are you going to get a lot, you could replant your entire garden usually with one pepper. I'm going to show you all this. Can y'all see how many seeds are on there?
Yeah.
That is, this is really good. You could replant your entire garden for the next 10 seasons if you're just doing a small backyard garden. But you can do a garden like this with one for a couple of years. So imagine what it would look like if we all started saving our seeds and then sharing them with people that don't have a green thumb, or we wanted to get them into gardening. And not only that, but not all of them are going to survive. Some of your seeds aren't, they're just not. It's luck of the draw.
What was the advantage of planting your seeds and then planting from seedlings? Like, I know most tomatoes are planted from seeds, and then the seedlings are made to beds. And start with seedlings, but I've never seen okra done that way.
Okra doesn't like to be moved, and so I've done it.
I've never
And
even seen it done.
We did it here.
And it worked.
When we realized that the corn wasn't gonna really work, there was two things. This okra bed number 15 was overplanted with the thought that not all of the seed would germinate and that we could thin them out. And when it came time to thinning them out, I just couldn't bring myself to pulling out a plant and throwing it away. So Crystal and I carefully dug them up and put them in the rows in the back that were originally designed for corn, and half of them survived and the other half didn't, and we don't know why. But we're also just learning. What I have learned is okra is finicky. It generally doesn't like to be moved. The advantage of doing tomatoes, starting them from seed and then transplanting them, is you're starting them in your house. It is more economical. A tomato plant at a nursery is anywhere between $3 and $5. Depending on the size, you can actually get them bigger and they cost considerably more. But if you start a tomato seed in your windowsill in February, and by the time it's ready to plant, like in April, mid-April, you have a nice sized tomato plant, and they transplant very well. So the answer to your question is you're extending the season.
I can tell you that my grandparents, when they farmed big time, but the way that they did tomatoes was they had a wash tub, and they put manure and really rich dirt in this wash tub, and they put seeds in there, and then they put a layer of glass on top of that wash tub, and it stayed outside.
Okay.
Oh, like a top. Okay.
Yeah, and so they grew it outside, but they always used seedlings from that wash tub to start their tomatoes.
They didn't. They used seed.
They started with
They
seed.
started with
They
seed.
started with seed.
And then when
they
it got
put
big
in,
enough,
right, that's
they were
what I'm
able to,
saying.
yeah.
But
So
they didn't take it inside or anything. It was always outside with glass over the top of it.
Well, and I would do that here in a greenhouse.
Right.
Inside is tomatoes do not do well in cold, in the cold. That glass and that wash tub provided insulation for those seeds. Even these seeds that are, even these plants that are cool weather plants that do very well in cooler climates, the seed needs warmth to germinate. So what, it was your grandparents? So that's what they were, what they were doing is they were providing a warm environment. That manure and any good compost, our compost, when we get at it, when we start to stir it, steam comes out of it. So what they were doing is they were providing a warm environment. And you're right, you don't need to take it inside if the conditions outside are good enough. I don't have that level of skill or confidence, if I'm being honest. So that is the only advantage of starting with seed. If I'm starting with seed, I'm starting in late January, early February in a windowsill. If she's starting with a seedling, she's starting in April. So if I wanted to start my garden late, I ain't gonna start with a seed. But the other advantage is, as the tomato plants started to die this year, it would have been better for this garden had I, as they were dying, planted new seeds next to the where the ones were dying. So I could have just cut them off at the base and then let the new ones grow, and we could have had a second crop. But I didn't know. Now I do. Okay, so this is our potted stuff. The beans act the same way. You leave them on the vine until the stems dry out. This is how you get your dried beans, by the way. Your black beans and kidney beans and pinto beans. You just leave them on. These happen to be just, I think a Kentucky Wonder. These are just good old-fashioned green beans. They were, I promise. They were green. And this dry bean, you can either eat it, like you can cook it, eat it in a soup, but this is your seed for next year. Okay, so storing your seeds. Do you guys do, I know you do a little bit of seeds. Not yet. Do you guys have seeds? Do you store them? What methods do you use?
So I dry them, and then I put them in a glass jar with a piece of cloth on top of the jar with a lid screwed on top of the jar with a piece of cloth.
So that is genius. Putting your seeds in a jar and then putting a cloth on top uses jars that we can't throw away, because we don't like to throw glass in the trash. We can't recycle them because Gwinnett County won't pick them up. So unless you want to drive to Snellville and get rid of them, like I have a ton of jars. So putting your seeds in a jar repurposes your glass jars, which is an excellent way to store them, especially if you have young babies. You got a lot of baby food jars. They're nice small size. I think so. And you can write on the jar with a glass marker, or you can use a sticker that just identifies it. But putting a cloth covering over the top ensures that if you didn't let these suckers dry enough, they're going to continue to dry and they are not likely to mold. You're letting the air escape. Is that what you said? Yeah. I like plastic. I like plastic because I'm messy and because I have a lot of seeds. So.
I read that glass won't decompose for 500 years after it's disposed.
Sounds about right. I still prefer these. I put my my seeds in here. I have this card that I use. Sorry, a little loud. I use these cards that I made for myself, and I have plenty if anybody wants any, where I can write some information, especially when I'm not buying the seeds. If I'm, pulling them out of this yellow pepper, then I would write that it is what characteristics about it and what did I notice. I like the plastic because I do so much out here, and I tend to drop them, and this way I don't worry about them getting wet.
Yeah.
So this is my preferred method, but I think it's probably the least favored So if you're gonna save seeds, there's paper envelopes are fantastic. Glass jars, Tic Tac containers. Use your imagination and use the method that works best for you. Okay. There's only 2 more things that I wanted to discuss with you all, and I really didn't start till this time. Okay, we're doing good. What not to save? Right? You looked at me like, what are you, crazy? I'm saving it all. Don't. There are some vegetables that they're biennials. What that means is the year that you plant them, they're not going to give you seed. And if you want their seed, you have to dig them up, the whole thing, root and all, put it in some cold storage. I'm not sure if a refrigerator is appropriate. A lot of things that you read about when they talk about cold and dry does not mean your fridge. It actually means a root cellar or a garage or something that I don't have.
And dark too, right?
Cold, dark, yes. There are some plants that are going to die if you leave them in the ground over the winter. They can handle a light frost, but they can't handle a freeze. Or they're these biennials that you have to dig up and store, and then the whole thing, and then replant the thing next year. Cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. A lot of these things are biennials, and they're not going to give you seed in the year that you plant them. However, when you buy them in the store, when you buy a pack of seeds in the store, they give you like a gazillion. They give you so many. How many heads of broccoli can you grow? Can a gardener, a home gardener, grow anyway? You need a lot of space. So for me, those kinds of things I'm not gonna try to save, at least not all of it. I'm gonna pick my battles. What do I have storage for? What would be just as reasonable to buy, or better yet, if you're doing seed swaps with your friends and your community, those are the seeds that you should be looking to swap. You swap your tomato seeds that you can get very easily with Brussels sprouts or collards or even parsley. Those are biennials. You're not going to get seeds from your parsley every year. It's every other year. So, any questions?
With asparagus is totally different.
Oh, talk about asparagus. That's not even a seed. What is that? That is a tuber? No, it's not.
It's a root.
It's a root.
It's a root, and if you plant it, you're not going to get many asparagus for 2 or 3 years.
3 years.
Maybe 3 years.
No wonder.
It's going to be small. And you don't get much for your money until 5 years, and then it starts growing, and it just comes back every year after year after year, and gets bigger and bigger and better and better. But it takes a long time to get stuff out of asparagus, and then you move off and sell it in your house, and somebody else gets all your asparagus.
Is that what happened to you?
You know, you're not wrong. My first year growing asparagus, that I planted asparagus, it grew. Green stuff came out of the ground,
Yeah,
and I was
flowers,
so excited.
Yeah.
And it has all these little things that I just assumed were seed. I was told that's your plant going to seed, so I would take them off and let them fall back down, which may or may not have been right. I didn't get a lick of food off of that. And then the next year they came up, they were skinnier than this pen. Matt, thank you. They were skinnier than this pen. They were adorable. But the third year, they really were a nice size. They were starting to get healthy. And then I was like, I'm not a gardener. I put it in, I tried it. It didn't really work. And so I pulled it all out. I have so much regret over that. But that would be an entirely different workshop on bare root, I think is what it is. It's a bare root plant that it's not even a seed that you start. So that's a little bit outside of my expertise.
It's a totally different animal.
It is definitely and then you have like artichokes. You plant them 365 days, I think.
You can buy those.
Yeah.
Buy them. Just buy them. There are some things, if you are a die-hard gardener, that you want to try. I say try it all. But in your first year of gardening and when it comes to saving seed, when you go to the grocery store and you buy a tomato, save the seed, put it in a cup, add some dirt and some water in a sunny window, and you will have a plant growing. Now, be prepared, because it doesn't take long, and that tomato is going to need a new home.
Yeah.
Either a bigger pot, and you can, lots of people grow tomatoes in pots. They don't bother digging a hole in their dirt, in their yard, and they don't bother with raised beds. They just keep them in containers. People that live in apartment complexes have a successful time growing tomatoes that way all the time. So that's really what this is, more test it, try it out. Anyway, sorry, I rambled. So that's what not to save. Biennials. And then the last thing I wanted to share with you guys, because we're almost out of time, is how to test. You wanted to talk about those, didn't you? You wanted to do these? All right, I'm gonna do these real quick. These are gourds. These are birdhouse gourds. This is not as green as it was when it was growing, but that he has a buddy. There's like 3 of them. They're constantly zipping by. When this is growing, it's actually a lot darker green. This is a birdhouse gourd, and this is one of the freshest ones that we have. Normally, like we talked about, you would wait until the stem is completely dry, like this one, like these, okra, like the flowers. These didn't give us a choice. They self-harvested, meaning they just detached from the vine. And you should see at my house, I have the same arches at my house, and I have these zip ties, and they're all connected to my arches with zip ties. So from my window, it looks like I have 25 or 30 of these things flying. It's hilarious. Anyway, when you this is a birdhouse gourd. This is very fresh. It's the most recent one that came off here a little bit ago. The rest of them all came from my house. This is one that is fully dry. When can you get the seeds? This weighs a ton, this weighs nothing. This is very, very fleshy. It's solid. If you open this up, not only would it stink, but you'd be disappointed because the seeds have not done whatever it is that they do in there to become this. Is that what you wanted? You was looking at it, I wasn't sure.
Okay. And we have one that belongs to George Johnson. If you haven't seen it,
Yes,
it's still up here.
it is. We have one that is hanging in.
No, we don't. But you can.
I wouldn't advise it. They smell pretty bad. These are for arts, crafts. It's a birdhouse gourd. I'm gonna cut a hole in it. I don't have. You know what? I'll try it. They don't take much. I usually use like a box cutter or something like that, but these are pretty easy to pierce once they're dry. And I'm not gonna go back to the doctor on purpose.
We have one out there somewhere.
Crystal, would you go get the one? It's in bed 16. Thank you. She's my Vanna. You can cut these with a drill, like a power tool, if you have any. And this is how you get the seeds out. And so these seeds need to be fully dried before you store them.
Are those still dry?
This is a little bit damp. This is actually, do you want to touch them? So we're gonna put a hole in it. We're gonna have, what?
We're gonna make some in spring.
We are.
Sad.
Or over the winter, if we're really bored.
If they get dried out. You see?
Yeah, these are the seeds. These are wet and kind of gooey, but that's what it looks like. You want to smell it? Does it smell good? Actually, it's really nice. Yeah, it's really nice.
She had a box up there.
Who? Yeah, she did. Kathy had a bunch of them. All right. Wait until Crystal gets back. Thank you, cameraman. Crystal.
Oh, girl.
I'll keep rolling.
We're waiting on you.
When you...
Seeds.
I'm sorry?
Looking for seeds.
Good girl. Actually, I would encourage all of you here, if you are interested in any of these zinnias, take any of the dead ones home with you. Get the seeds out and replant them. All right, once you have done all of these, I love her. She's my girl. Once you've gone through all the trouble of removing the seeds from your fruits, vegetables, and flowers, you'll be very aggravated if in the spring you go to plant something and nothing grows. So what you can do is a viability test. And I recommend doing this. I do it not for everything. I do it for the things that I'm first time saving that I haven't ever saved before. For me this year, loofah and the birdhouse gourds, I've never saved those seeds before. So I wasn't really sure how it was going to go, what to expect. And one of the gourds, I thought for sure the seeds were too immature, that they were not going to germinate. So what you do is you take, and I didn't bring any paper towels, but I'm going to show you with these, is you take a couple of paper towels and you get them wet. They can be soaking, and you just wring them out. Lay in maybe 2 or 3, and then do about 10 of the seeds that you just plucked out. Remember, you got about, what is that?
Right.
Maybe 100 in there. This may be maybe less, maybe more, I'm not sure. Sacrificing 10 is going to pay off huge in the long run. What you want to do is lay out your paper towel and then place about 10 seeds in it, and then cover it up and then put it in a Ziploc bag or some other airtight container. Put it away. Put the date on it and put it away. Shouldn't see any sunlight. After about 10 days, which I did these on the 10th, so it's only been 7 days. This is the loofah seed. You're gonna open it up and you're gonna see how many of them have sprouted.
Yes.
I have
Wow.
3, I think that was part of that one. 3, 4, I have 5 that have sprouted in 7 days.
Out of 10.
5 out of 10,
5 out of 10.
but it's only been 7 days.
Right,
I'm going to
right.
continue to wait the full 10 days. 5 out of 10. That is a 50% germination rate. What that means is when I go to sow these in the spring, I'm going to sow more. I'm going to do 2 per hole. I may end up with 2 growing out of the hole and none growing out of the next spot, and that's okay. I know that if I have a 50% chance when I give them away to other people, I'm going to give more, because I know that it's possible that they're not going to have
Right.
100%. And nothing feels better. There are some things that feel better, but it feels great when you're testing seeds and you pull it back and you see all of them have these little
Right.
tails on it. Have y'all ever done this?
No, but I want to.
This one I did 20.
We could do them with flowers too, like this.
Yep. This one I did 20 because I had 2 different types of birdhouse gourds. Like I said, one that was a little bit drier than the other, and I wasn't 100% sure. But
Wow.
look at these.
Wow, all of
Oh,
these.
yeah.
That
all
is-
of these.
This one did not germinate. And this one hasn't either. This I did on the 9th. So this has been 8 days.
Wow.
This guy, look at these.
What seeds are those?
This is the birdhouse gourd.
Okay, it's like bean sprouts. You see that?
So I would call this is not 100% germination. These darker seeds did not. And at least one of the lighter seeds didn't. So I wouldn't feel comfortable calling this 100%. I would do the math, the number of seeds that sprout into the number of seeds that you plant. and then and I may do these separately. Throw this away, do these alone by themselves in another 10 days and see what happens. Because saved. I'm doing this to know of the seeds that I'm sharing. If Crystal, you walk up to me and say, I really want some birdhouse gourd seeds, I'm not going to just give you 3. Well, actually, I probably would, because I tell you what, birdhouse gourds. They completely covered one arch. I planted 1 seed and I got 30 in my backyard. Wow. Here, I planted like 4 seeds and I got 3. The whole arch was completely covered. Matt had to walk through it and he hit his head. I'm so sorry. I'm not laughing at you, but it was funny. It happened to me too. So I want to know how quickly, if they're going to mature before I give them away. And that's why I do it pretty close to after harvesting the seed, which is usually in the fall, and I'm not ready to plant until the spring. The last thing I wanted to share with you, I thought that was the last, and then I remembered I had this guy, is when you're saving seeds, you can't tell as much with the smaller ones, but this is a pumpkin seed. This is really easy to tell. When you guys are saving seeds, they should feel like there's something in there. This one is paper thin. It is not with child. There is no bone in this oven. This one absolutely has something in it. Let's see if you want to show this to her. If your seed is void of anything on the inside, just throw it away. Yeah, it's not going to sprout. So that's it.
Thank you. That was very good.
That is, I'm sorry?
Her seeds.
Well, I'm trying to, her seeds are for swapping. Do you want to, her seeds are for giving away.
But they're not dry. You have to dry them yourself.
Thank you, Matt. You can keep it on and turn it off.
This is how they
Look.
Look at how beautiful this is.